I remember when I got closer to him and I pushed the board out, you just could see its eyes just like light up. Like it was like, oh my God, salvation. Like I can grab onto this and get out of the water.
Hello, my name is Sacha Dench, but I'm better known as the Human Swan. I'm also the UN's ambassador for the Convention on Migratory Species. This year, the charity I founded, Conservation Without Borders, is launching a new expedition to follow the flight of the Osprey, an epic migration of 10,000 kilometres through 14 countries from Europe to West Africa. As a part of this, we're doing a series of podcasts to highlight the global stories and connections this bird makes, to help us see our complex and challenged world through the eyes of this incredible animal. In this episode, we're talking to Jimmy and Caitlyn, who had an encounter with an osprey they will never forget. So as the flight of the Osprey expedition preparations are carrying on at speed, we've got all sorts of research coming in from different countries along the flyway on different impacts to the birds. But we then heard about a story of somebody who had some up close and personal experience of one of those impacts. And for this interview, I'd like to introduce Jimmy and Caitlyn. Hello, and thank you very much for joining us. And so the incident that we want to speak about in particular happened one day at the beach. What exactly were you both doing there?
We actually were going surfing that day, and we pulled up to the beach, and I was getting ready to get out in the water, and we had both kind of noticed something weird when we pulled up, and she was stuck on whatever it was. I kind of just like, oh yeah, there's something out there. I assumed it was a pelican or something in the water. But the more she looked at it, the more it looked like, well, there's something odd going on out there. It's not a pelican. It looks different. And I was like, it was kind of a far walk down to the beach. I was like, or down to the water at least. So I was like, all right, well, I'll walk down there and get a closer look. And that's when I walked down there and I realized it was an osprey, and it was swimming in the water, at least trying to swim back to the beach, but the way the current was going, it was trying to pull it out into the ocean. And that's when I was like, okay, well, now we've got to do something. So I ran back up to the truck and told her, I was like, hey, I need your surfboard to go get it. And that's when the whole scenario played out.
And Caitlyn, what were you seeing at the time?
I don't really remember too much about it, other than it was that this dark blob just kind of bobbing along in the water, and it just didn't look natural. Like it just looked like either like trash or some sort of unnatural thing that didn't belong in the water. And like Jimmy said, I was just so hyper fixated on it that whenever he went out, I was just like, well, check it out, just see what's going on. And one thing, I guess, I don't know where we were, was that where all the rocks were? So where we were, our truck was parked pretty high up, and there were these pretty steep rocks that you have to walk down in order to get to the water. So when Jimmy said he ran back to the car, he was huffing and puffing to get back up these rocks to then carry my giant soft top surfboard all the way back down to the water. So it was an event.
And how far out into the water was it?
Yeah, well, so I saw what was going on, because when they swim, it's kind of like a butterfly stroke or whatever, where they're kind of like throwing their wings over to grab water. But he was not doing well. Like he was very soaked. He looked really tired. And that's what I was like, well, I ran back, grabbed her board. And the reason I grabbed her board is because it's a soft top, and so it has foam, and
it's a little spongy.
It was going to be easier for him to grab onto. I also grabbed a towel because I knew, if there was something, that would help me, I guess, get a hold of the bird. So when I ran out there, my plan was, well, I'm not going to grab him. I was just going to try to present the surfboard to him as something to get out of the water on. And that was like, I remember when I got closer to him and I pushed the board out, you just could see its eyes just like light up. Like it was like, oh my God, salvation. Like I can grab onto this and get out of the water, because I think it was kind of struggling itself, and I pushed the board out to it, and it immediately latched onto the front of it, and that's when I was able to kind of turn it around and start swimming with it back onto the beach. And that's really when I realized why it was in that situation, because as soon as I turned it around, I saw the fishing line trailing from it, and I was like, okay, well, this is why he's struggling right now. And it wasn't until we got him up on to the sand that we realized how much fishing line it actually had on it, as well as a weight and a hook and everything else. And I was just like, oh gosh, please don't be hooked. Please don't be, cut up anywhere or something like that. And we were able to get a towel on it. And I told her immediately, like when I was running up the beach, and I was like, hey, it's got fishing line on it, I'm going to need a knife. And she goes into run mode.
I saw a couple of people fishing, I don't know, a good bit of ways, and I just took off to them because I figured maybe they would have something. So I just ran over to them, and I was just like, my husband just saved an osprey and there's fishing line on it. Do you have a knife or anything that I could use to cut off the rope? So they handed me a knife, and I took back off, and they eventually kind of made their way back over to us to see what was going on and to get the knife back. But thank God they had that knife, because otherwise,
yeah. Well, no, yeah, we would have. I mean, we would have found something to cut it off, because it was so intertwined and knotted up that it was going to take us. Because at the same time, it's like you want to get it done as fast as possible, because it's a stressful situation for the bird. Because we had to cover it in a towel to keep it calm, and and try to keep its talons secured, because it doesn't know what's going on. It's so we're just trying to get it helped as fast as possible, make sure there's no, injured and very obvious injuries. But, that's why you could hear her huffing and puffing in the video, because she had to run down to the beach to get the knife, ran back, and then some other bystanders came up, and one of them actually helped me kind of start, because I was holding on to the bird, and he was using a knife, and I was telling him cut there, and cut there, and we were just kind of pulling the line as we cut it, and finally got it all off, and did a quick once over. I'm like, hey, the hook wasn't in it. It looks like there's no lacerations or cuts on it, so we're gonna just take the towel off and hope for the best and let it sit here, and hopefully it's just really weak, and it will kind of regain its composure a little bit.
I was pretty stunned for 30 minutes.
Yeah, so so we got the towel off it, and we sat on the beach and just watched it, and we're like, all right, come on, because I didn't want to have to take it somewhere or whatever. I was hoping it was going to be able to recover and do its thing.
Yeah, so we talked about the options, beaks or some other local bird rescue place in case something happened.
Yeah, we've got a few, but they weren't close by. I mean, it was going to be an hour or more, drive with this thing in a car, and just way more of a stressful situation for us. So I was really hoping it was just going to be able to fly away, which
it did.
After a long time, it kind of, you start seeing it perk up. It starts, flapping its wings, getting dried off. And the moment when it because we were cheering it on at that point, because it was it's like, oh gosh, he's going to do it. And then when it finally jumped off the board, and because it was still on the surfboard at this point, it never left the surfboard that entire 30 minutes on the beach. And it finally got up to the back of the surfboard where it was a little bit higher off the ground, and took off, and there it went down the beach. And it was
great.
It was pretty great feeling.
I used to do a lot of free diving, mostly around the coast of Sydney. And there I met plenty of fishermen who absolutely love the outdoors, would really love sitting on the rocks, kind of spending time fishing. And quite often they had absolutely no idea that just under the surface of the water near there, in some areas, the entire rock face is actually a collection of snagged fishing line, enough that you could put your fingers in and grab it in big clumps. And so every now and then I'd kind of take pictures and show people, and they were pretty shocked at just how much all of those fishing lines, all those individual lines can add up. But I guess, so as someone now who's had, the statistics on the impacts of discarded fishing line and nets and all the rest of it, plastic debris, are pretty scary. But yeah, what would you say as someone who's had close-up experience of what fishing line can do to an animal?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough, it's a tough like dynamic, because it's like, fishing is important. It's a huge like food producer worldwide and everything else. It's also, a great recreational activity for people to get outside and kind of experience nature and be out in the outdoors. But, I think it really comes down to education and basically informing people how to do it sustainably and, minimize their impacts to the environment, from their actions. And this particular instance, I'm fairly certain, how it happened, because so the inlet that we were next to, there was actually a certain fish run happening, and there was a lot of people fishing, and the bird most likely got into somebody's fishing line while they were fishing, and rather than reeling in the bird and getting, because the line that it had on it was the bird couldn't have broke it on its own. It most likely got tangled, and the fishermen didn't want to deal with it, so they cut the line, thinking, oh, well, I'll cut the line and he'll get free, and they cut the line, and the bird didn't get free, and it was basically weighed down, ended up in the water. And that's a huge issue in where we live, because people still do that. They get a bird tangled in the line, they want to cut it and not deal with it, and what happens is that bird flies off, lands on a branch somewhere, that line gets tangled on the branch, and then unfortunately that bird is stuck there until either somebody finds it, or unfortunately until it succumbs to not being able to go find food and starves. So
I mean, they are a bird with impressive talons. Can you see why somebody might be scared of getting up close and personal with it? And why weren't you scared?
I mean, yes, but at the same time, it was so lethargic. It was just exhausted.
Yeah.
There wasn't anything to be scared of. Even when it would flap its wings really big, it was only doing it to help itself. It wasn't trying to hurt us ever.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, yeah, it being so tired helped, but at the same time too, it's like I've been around it enough, so it's like I knew what I needed to do, and I knew what the concerns were and what we needed to worry about. And
yeah,
it really, there was no thought. Like as soon as I saw it was an osprey, it was in trouble, it just immediately was just instinct. Like, okay, I need the surfboard, I need a towel, let's get it onto I need to get it out of the water. And then it just progressed like that. And luckily we had, what we needed. She was able to find a knife on the beach, and it all just happened. There was not a lot of thought about it. It was just like, hey, I need this, get this. And we all came together, even the bystanders that came by and helped me cut the line off of it. And
yeah,
we were able to help it out. And I'm just, like I said, I just feel very fortunate that we were actually there to be able to help out. Because, if we would have pulled up 5 minutes later, we would have never seen it. And it could have been, out into the ocean and eventually drowned or something like that.
And you obviously had the foresight to pick up a camera and actually film it as well, which is excellent from our point of view, because now 38 million people have seen it, which is a pretty impressive number. What kind of message would you hope people would take from the video?
I mean, for me personally, it's just, I just love people to have more exposure to like what their actions can cause, or inactions can cause, really, and realize that, hey, take care of your trash, kind of thing, because just dispose of your trash properly, or your fishing line properly, and all this other stuff. And how, because if they wouldn't have seen that, or if somebody wouldn't have seen that happen, it would have just been like out of sight, out of mind. You wouldn't think about it. So I think it's like we all need to be more conscious of what our the impacts of our lives. in trying to do whatever we can to reduce those impacts.
Great. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you to you both for stepping up and getting your hands dirty, because you also don't know if it's going to succeed. Some people will avoid it because they're actually not sure that they're 100% sure that they'll succeed. But in that sort of situation, you were obviously the only hope that it had. So yeah, thanks for that, and for sharing your story with us and being part of the Flight of the Osprey.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's exciting work that y'all are doing. So
yeah, well, we hope you'll follow on with the rest of the expedition. It's obviously the birds tend to do a kind of north and south migration. It's a bit different in the US, but there will be many of the same challenges as well. And certainly, I think also the interesting thing when we look at the human side of conservation, there'll be all kinds of different people, different cultures, different languages for us, because over here in Europe, the migration takes us down through the Sahara Desert and into West Africa. So it's a pretty epic journey of very, very different people along the way. And examples like yourselves of people who are stepping up to do something for them is exactly what we're hoping to spotlight. So thanks very much.